there's a problem. There is no Benjamin. Okay? So we have to be careful because they would actually believe that they would be able to do these sort of things, right? So, where were we? 7. Right. You are not to have sexual relations with your father. Moab and Ammon, okay? Yeah, Lot's daughters. You are not to have sexual relations with your mother. She is your mother. Do not have sexual relations with her. Okay? It astounds me that this actually had to be written down.
Yeah.
It seems utterly mad. But again, in context. You are not to have sexual relations with your father's wife. She is your father's prerogative. Okay? You are not to have sexual relations with your sister, the daughter of your father, or the daughter of your mother, whether born at home or elsewhere. Do not have sexual relations with them. You are not to have sexual relations with your son's daughter. Son's daughter? Your grandchild. Or with your daughter's daughter. Do not have sexual relations with them because their sexual disgrace will be your own. You are not to have sexual relations with your father's wife's daughter born to your father because she is your sister. Do not have any sexual relations with her. Okay, so when you start talking about half-sisters, half-brothers,
brother from another mother.
Yeah, all of these sort of scenarios. And the first couple of lines with your dad and whatever, I can actually think of many instances where I've read magazines where these people, like in the States and things like that, where parents have enticed their children because of lack of love from whatever. I remember this article, I think it was about 12, where this woman actually did this to her son. And she invited him into the bedroom and everything like that, and when he became a man, she knew this was wrong and she tried to stop it. He was so confused he didn't know. Why are you chasing me away now? This is how we are. My mom and I sleep together. And you stop and you think this is so far detached from what God has ordained, it's not even funny. And yet, these sort of things are happening even today. We like to go, oh, no, but I promise you, not far from here, these things are happening.
There are children who leave their parents.
It's sort of depravity, okay? You are not to have sexual relations with your father's sister because she is your father's close relative. You are not to have sexual relations with your mother's sister because she is your mother's close relative. You are not to disgrace your father's brother by having sexual relations with his wife because she is your aunt. You are not to have sexual relations with your daughter-in-law because she is your son's wife. Do not have sexual relations with her. You are not to have sexual relations with your brother's wife because it is your brother's wife. You are not to have sexual relations with both woman and her daughter. Alright, now you start thinking of Alabama. But remember, a little bit later, this was actually very, very pertinent when it came to temple prostitution. Okay? Guys would go in and mommy would be a temple prostitute, worshipping her God, and so would the daughter. So if you wanted to worship twice, crack on. Okay? This is not just normal family hustles. I mean, it goes all the way to that. But temple prostitution was as pertinent.
This is about the nakedness of your brother's wife. Now what happened, because they don't think about if your brother dies, then we'll take his wife
And just the responsibility of it.
That was creating.
But you had to give her an heir.
Yes, but he wasn't there. He wasn't there to do that. And it was only in the case if she did not have a son. She would literally lose her land and become destitute because of the way the world was structured. So it was, again, not the ideal rule, but the fact is, unless you did something that would be lasting, she would literally have no food to start with. Okay? You are not, I was also about the inheritance. You are not to have sexual relationships with both woman and her daughter, nor are you to have sexual relations with her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter. They are close relatives of hers, and that would be shameful.
Does it sound like there's families that into, like, you know how today you have In some cases, actually most cases, where you've got previous marriages and now they're together with the families all deceased and then remarried.
You're looking at.
Because there's a lot of like your husband's wife's kids. So it sounds like it was two families that came together in this time as well.
And
Well, it's not blood, but it's your family now.
even today, you would sit and you go, oh, I'm marrying my half sister. You would go, it's frowned upon,
Yeah.
but it's accepted.
And other cousins are known.
Yeah.
My cousin married a Chinese, and she died of cancer. And the family brought the younger sister in her place. And it was awkward for us because they are culture.
It is. You are not to take a woman to be a rival with her sister and have sexual relations with her while her sister is still alive. Because it would obviously create, what's the noise? What biblical
Rachel and
example?
Leah.
Rachel and Leah, okay? You are not to approach a woman in order to have sexual relations with her when she is unclean from the time of her niddah, so her menstrual cycle. You are not to go to bed with your neighbor's wife and thus become unclean with her. You are not to let any of your children to be sacrificed to Moloch. Now this is fine. Unclean, unkosher, unkosher. This is not the way we do things. Oh, and by the way, don't sacrifice your children to an idol. Seems unrelated. But the simple fact of the matter is, when we're all having a good time and everybody's sleeping with everybody, and it's it's just that time of year where we do things. Strip your pants off. It's an old day, you have a good time, you have a good time, that's your wife, bro. Hey, I've had my eye on her since last week. It's old. And then 9 months later, neighbor's wife said pregnant. And we're thinking, is this my baby? While I was busy with that other ex-wife, is this my baby? I do not know. So, we need props. We need to appease Moloch to give us great things because of the fertility rights. So what do? Well, I don't even know if it's mine.
We don't know who's this, so let's just throw it off.
It doesn't matter. This is part of this is even though part of your wife, the fact that they have wives and they let things happen like this happen is disturbing to me anyway. But this is the way in the world it was in at that time. And now you sit with this child, you don't even know. Even if you did know it was your child, it was considered a great honor and a sacrifice to be able to take your firstborn or whatever, and you would go up to them and remember Moloch was an idol that kind of had his hands up like this, his mouth all the way down. And they would heat up the furnace so hot that when they said you dropped said baby, they could smell the burning flesh as it rolled down into the furnace. So it wasn't as even if it was just a quick death. They literally burned to death. Lovely. Everybody feeling warm and fuzzy. As much as an abomination, as unclean as what the sexual immorality is, he puts it in the same, not in the same portion as this is how you want to worship. You see, worship, you will do it at my tabernacle, you will do it in my prescribed way. You will not do it out there by yourself. You will come to me, and then all of a sudden he goes, what we see as, okay, he's talking about sacrifices, now he's talking about sex. No. This is all worship. Later in Torah, you'll hear about these guys that come down and with Balak and Balaam and all the rest of it, and they will say, oh no, well, I can't curse these people. Balaam was a prophet for hire, remember? And then he'll go, well, I've got a plan. Send the daughters. And the daughters came down and they were all enticing and people were like, oh, you're friendly. And it's like, oh, how do you worship? Welcome. Like, well, there's the tabernacle of God, the Mishkan, we stand there and we can sacrifice. Oh, that's pretty hectic. Your God's pretty hardcore. This is how we worship. Strip our pants off. And to a point where a chieftain's son was actually enticed to the point where he actually laid with the priest's daughter, I think the name was Cosby, inside the entrance of the tabernacle, having sex as an act of worship to appease God. And one of the Kohen's sons' fingers got up and he said, enough's enough. And he took a spear and he stabbed it so hard through them that he pegged it into the ground through two people.
Yes, rage.
filling it now. And what happens is, God actually looked at this and he gave a covenant with Phineas. And he said, because you have stood up for me. Listen, listen. The simple fact of the matter is, your truth, my truth, the way we worship, the way you worship, it's all one God, isn't it? God is love. Willem was telling me, Willem last night, he was telling me about, there's a Christian, you read in the States somewhere, there was a Christian couple spreading the gospel by swinging.
Interesting.
Yes. We were talking about the Bible, and then me and my wife, and then we do the thing, and then we do these things, and then we spread the love, because Jesus is love. Fertility rights. It's happening today. And you consider that worship. There was a very naughty, I suppose while we're doing the PG thing, there was a very cheeky billboard. It made me laugh, but it's very disturbing at the same time. That there was a billboard on the side of a church, I think somewhere in the States as well, that said, lying in bed screaming, oh God, does not count as going to church. Do not mistake what you're doing and what God is seeing and how you are acting. Same Israel, same God. Why do you think he says before you come into the temple you stay away from your wife? Not because it is a lewd act, it's because God made it making good. He made your pots the way they work. He made it to feel good with your wife. But he says you do not confuse that with what I'm doing here. Do not confuse that with worship. Separate the two, because you're going into a place where fertility cults are rife. And the sad thing is, Israel, time and time again, fell into this, well, it's a lot less stringent, we can do what we want to thing. It's a sacrifice. My God likes sacrifices. God said His love. Isn't this love? He created us doing it this way. What's the difference? And every single one of you, I'm hoping, at least had your heart drop at least 3 times reading this. Why did God have to write this down? First question. Second question is, why is it still pertinent today?
Still happening today.
Probably more widespread today.
And it's even more accepted. Besides the child sacrifice thing.
So,
Yeah, abortions and such. Okay, so. It says, verse 22, you're not to go to bed with a man as with a woman, it is an abomination. It says nothing about woman on woman action, no, so you guys are okay. I actually heard a rabbi make a statement like this. It also says nothing about threesomes in this. As long as you're married to both women, it's fine. And they're not sisters. And I stop and I think, what type of rabbi is this? How is that anything in the same line as what he created with Adam and Eve? How does, if we just have to use our fractions, just for a little bit, okay? And I'm being sarcastic, facetious, whatever you can call it. If lady is made from man's rib, so let's just make the statement. Man is 3/4. And woman who completes him is 1/4. Man plus woman equals one flesh, one whole. Right? How then does this guy get to one man plus one wife while sleeping with another wife, as long as they're not sisters, at the same time equals one flesh? How is this any sort of mathematical equation that makes sense?
Circulation of formula.
You think?
Times about the square root of pi.
Yes, pi is round, and I like pi. I'll sleep with 2 women at the same time, it's okay.
Any pi.
Yes, any pi, because that means I get 2 plates of dinner, because I have 2 wives. Yes.
Pi is 3 points, so
Yes, that's Einstein's logic. Pi is 3. 3.33, so I need an extra piece. You will have people justifying why it's okay, because God did not specifically say a woman sleeping with a woman as with a man is not. The principle is exactly the same. Man and woman, one flesh. You complete each other.
Can I stir now?
Yes, do.
But the kings, they had, obviously practice was to make alliance with that kingdom.
Yes.
They offer their daughters in marriage. Like King David, he had things happening and he was a godly man. So now,
He was also a
there's
murderer.
people going around today who are having more than one wife based on, oh, because we're going to inherit one day the promised land and we're going to all be kings, so we need our wives. We're building our little household.
Yes. And God said in the beginning, God said, multiply. My wife doesn't want to multiply with me every week, so I think I'll get another one who helps me multiply. Because I like multiplication.
Abraham, even Abraham,
That's division.
nothing what you're talking about is.
Okay, simple fact of the matter is it was allowed for a king to have another wife for the instance if his first wife could not fall pregnant. That means we have to create an heir, otherwise the nation will fall into chaos. That was the logic. God said specifically, for a king will not take many wives. This is what Solomon felt. Okay? He took with the harems and he made strategic alliances. Yes, I like your trade in Egypt, I will have those blankets, I'll take your daughter, I'll make her, I'll put her in a cage or harem or whatever you want to do. I'll visit her a few times a year. Just to keep you happy so I can have more ships and camels run down to you so I can make more money. How is that marriage? How is that what God had instituted? One man, one woman, one flesh. How are you balancing each other out? How are you finding that other piece of yourself that when it comes together, you are first time whole? This is what marriage is. That missing piece inside of me that I could not find shalom with because something is wrong. And when you find it and God slowly starts to work with you and He winds you two together and He makes it fit and He re-puts all the things as it should be. And you want to make a case about having two wives that you will sleep together with two. That's lust, that's not God. Don't try and make loopholes in Torah because you want to justify why you should have like extra wives and stuff because now you think this is a good idea. That is not the way God pictured. Okay? You know, we spoke about this with the dating and the marriage things and stuff like that. Don't run around looking for people that are just there. This is what lust is. You'll do. And if you're really good after the next 30 seconds, you're done. And then what? Sexual immorality in our time is running around test driving people. I don't want to marry if this guy's not good in bed. I want to make sure he's good in bed first. At least I'll not be satisfied if I don't like him. I've heard a statement from a woman. Guys, well, you don't really know a woman until she's naked. You're going to see what I'm getting at. You're going to look underneath that hood.
Got it, yeah.
20-year-old guy, you're going to see the turbos. The justification for why it's okay to sleep around is not what God wants from you. You will act in accordance with me. Because if you are to be alive, what are you telling the youngsters downstairs?
But there's also marriage. It wasn't like it is today. It was literally, you have your marriage and the consummation of your marriage. So the whole process of marriage today is very different. And I'm sure in some way we've messed up that formula because now we only now coming into learning this. So now you obviously like can ask God to spiritually detach you from the other quarter or the other 3 quarters because it's still like can be an issue playing in your little formula.
If we could, do you mind if I'm going to do it? Okay, now what happens in the case of divorce? Okay, we have instances in Torah where God says, divorce. Okay?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, guys, one person in a marriage can destroy a marriage. It takes 2 people to build it up, 1 person to break it down. You can either build each other up or you can destroy it. It's your choice. I will always tell you, you fight with every ounce of your being for that other person. It doesn't matter where they are, how dark it is, you fight because you're committed to them. Let no man tear apart what God has joined together. Because divorce is literally taking that piece that God has slowly honed together and you rip it out and then all of a sudden later you try and find someone else. It takes a really long time to fit. It is ugly. Homes get torn apart. You know that Torah actually states that if a man tells his wife that you can get, get rid of you. If she goes to someone else and that person dies, or in that case, he is not permitted to take her back. We brought you into this space once before. Now because you change your mind, you think it's okay? God is extremely zealous for the institution that He created. And the problem is, like Tam noted, marriage can be one of two things in today's world. Okay, let's make it. It's a piece of paper that joins two people together, man and wife, because it's what you get together, you like it, you test drive it for a while, eventually you decide to get off your butt, you get married. Okay, it's the way the world works. You think you like it enough, yeah, I'll keep it around. I've been sleeping with her for 3 years anyway. Okay? Ring on the finger, like a cracker, we go in and we do the legal thing. There is no God in this. It is what we are declaring to the world in a legal sense that we are now a single entity. It is a business transaction. They live separate lives. They have their own life, they have their own careers and all the rest of it. They'll get together and have strategic board meetings about if we have kids, what's going to happen, who's going to be here, who's not going to be here, and then what, oh, okay, thank you very much. I'll meet you in the bedroom later for consensual adult pleasure. It is literally an arrangement, that's all it is. There's two people living separate lives that come together in the bed every now and again because it feels good and we need to. If that's your version of marriage, you belong to the world. Sadly is, before you get married, make sure that that person is on the same page as you. Is that what they want, or do they want what God has instituted as marriage? Okay? The world has perverted it in many instances today. You hear about the States and Australia, and all these guys are having massive debates about surely it's okay if it's a partner, and the institution should stand. I'm happy to say that Australia and places like that said, no, you don't mess with that definition of marriage, it's still one man, one woman. Where the States went in and they're still heavily debating this, that they're saying, no, well, okay, we've turned it to a point where it's okay for a man and a woman to come together and they say, all right, we want to be one. But I'm sorry, a quarter does not make one. And 3/4 don't make one. It is not what God prescribed. But it's a worldly definition that Hasatan is so busy trying to pervert. If he cannot break your home, if he cannot destroy your marriage to break your children, he's going to pervert the idea of marriage. You know that when they did teaching, or they looked at some analysis on children and all the rest of it, they said, okay, draw your definition of marriage, and they all drew the same picture. It doesn't matter which part of the world they came from. They drew a house, they drew a mom, they drew a dad, they drew a baby. That was it. Every single child, doesn't matter if you were Chinese, you were Japanese, you were South African, you were from Israel, it didn't matter. That's the definition of family. That's the definition of marriage. This is what happens. Why do you think Hasatan is so busy trying to destroy it? Take the man away, put another man. I've got 2 dads now. Replace woman and woman. Who is a dad? All of a sudden, everything seems to be all about love and free speech and all of that. Why would you want to get married if you knew it was based on a biblical premise? If you do not believe in that God, why don't you just live together and enjoy it? You can be recognized as something else, but don't tell me you're married. Make no mistake here. I'm not against the people, I'm against what they're doing. I grew up with a guy who eventually believed he was gay because he was told so much that he threw like a girl, that he ran like a girl, that he should have done this, he should have done that. He eventually thought, well, okay, I might as well be a girl. That guy had plenty of girlfriends. He just decided he could swing both ways. And eventually when he became comfortable with that, he thought, oh, well, you know, women are so full of nonsense, I'll just stick to the guys. Let me tell them what they want. He became gay. And you know what? Justification. And you sit down and you think, okay, now, Dude, what are you thinking? I know you. I grew up with you. This is not you. What? Where are you? You know, sadly today that guy committed suicide. He was living the dream. Everybody knew he was gay. He was all accepted. He was that. Why was he so unhappy that he killed himself? Because what you think, changing who you are to fit someone else's ideas of what you think you are, or who they think you are, will not bring you peace. Sleeping around, guys, is going to break you. I'm not just talking about the physical implications here, I'm talking about the spiritual. Because you are giving up of your body to that person. And that person and you are becoming one. You are sharing what God has said, if I may coin what Will said with the dating thing. He said something very profound. Told the guys, let sex, making love, be a reward for your commitment to each other on your wedding. Let it be the reward. It's something to be enjoyed. And what happens is people jump into bed and they feel guilty and then they beat themselves up and they hate themselves. And then they go, no. But at the same time their body is raging and they're saying, oh, this feels really good, I'm going to do this. And there are consequences for this. STDs, pregnancies that were unplanned. You're dealing with situations where you shouldn't be in that situation. Dealing with a person, you don't even like that person anymore, but you've got a kid together. Let's make this work. And it doesn't. Why is God so fervent when it comes to do not mess with the sanctity of what I'm giving you? Sexual immorality today is a norm. It's acceptable.
It's actually a goal. It's actually like a goal.
You live together, sleep together for a while, stay in the same house. If you have, if I may, if you and your significant other live together in a house with your daughter, yet you were together and not together, together and not together, together and not together, what do you think would be the perception of your daughter?
What would be the perception of my daughter?
How would that affect?
She would think it's the norm. She would think that's common, toxic relationships are the way the world is. We reflect and leave a residual within our children, whether we like it or not.
Okay. What are you telling the people around you, and make no mistake, just using this fellowship as an example, if we completely backslided and we went to, okay, maybe not to this next when we started sleeping with our brothers and sisters and we get a banjo and we think, you know what, let's be a couple. We're all part of a family. You've got to love your family. What would you think? All of your children are downstairs learning about God. What are you telling them?
That it's okay to do that.
It's okay to change. It's okay not to commit. It's okay to make promises. Life is just a joke.
And when I look at you and I say, oh, well, you guys profess to be steadfast, Talmidim of Yeshua, Torah observant, sit, wearing. What are you telling people?
You're just telling the world that God's not there and that He's not alive because you're supposed to reflect God to others.
If Moses used to advocate to Hashem that don't kill your people because what will the world say about you that you drew them out of Egypt just to let them die in the wilderness. Similarly, your decision to just change could be reflected as such by the very world you're trying to impact on, if that makes sense.
One foot in, one foot out. Tell me, Jim, listen to me. Now is not the time to be two-minded. God is preparing people for a purpose. He's preparing you for a goal. You have made that step to follow. Not just believe, but to literally walk after Him. And I believe He's going to honor that in a way that would make you responsible for people that you are going to bring into your homes. And you are going to show them God. If you do not keep His statutes, forget about showing anybody you're showing them yourself.
I think
Now
that,
is not the time.
I think you're right, Vince, because there's definitely, like, we've all got backgrounds where there's issues because we're only coming down to this, and God knows that. And I think with the people as well, He writes it down, and we think, oh, how did they not know that? But the thing is, they came from a place that was acceptable. They came from Egypt, and now we're coming from the world. So now God has to just, He's like not holding us ransom to, oh, you sinned, don't do that again. He's being nice by saying that's not how it should be, it's not what I had for you. And then like slowly restoring us. And I think it's a process because, I mean, if we are like 3 quarters, 1 quarter, 1, then as the one, we're supposed to have a function together. And if we're destroying each other in that equation as well, never mind external quarters or 3 quarters, whatever, that's also not going to be ready because you're not going to be on time for when God needs to use you.
Absolutely.
You know, that's your calling as a couple.
Absolutely. Which we're going to discuss tomorrow with the ladies. All right, go back. 23. This is where things get really crazy. You are not to have sexual relations with any kind of animal, and thus become unclean with it. I'm not talking about when you call your husband an animal. This is an actual animal. Nor is any woman to present herself to an animal to have sexual relations with it. It is a perversion. Okay? Sadly today there is actually pornography out there called bestiality. You can click on any sort of thing and watch all types of things being done to mainly women by different types of animals, and you can just watch and enjoy because that's your bag. Okay? It is not what God has put into place. Do not make yourselves unclean by any of these things, because all of the nations which I'm expelling ahead of you are defiled with them. This is what you're going to face when you go there. I understand now that's not how I operate. You are going to leave here and you're going to a world where people will tell you that's okay. What you tell them or what you do or what you say is going to reflect your God. Okay? You have to stop and examine your feet. We all have to do this. Okay? Please do not get to the point where you justify what you're doing because of your circumstances. We have to look at what God says about your situation and go to that. Please stick to what God has instructed. Okay. The land has become unclean, and this is why I'm punishing it. The land itself will vomit out its inhabitants. Remember, He told Abraham that your people will go and take the promised land, but they will stay in captivity for 400 years, because the wicked nights of the Amalekites has not yet come to pass. He gave them 400 years to stop doing this rubbish, and still they keep on doing it, and He says, that's it, this land has become defiled. Now I'm going to go there and I'm going to turn it and I'm going to put into a place people who love me, who will show the world who I am. Why? Because they need it. They need to know that marriage exists. They need to know that you can do this. They need to know that you can still have a standard. Please, women, respect yourselves enough not to sleep around. What did that? Because Mark, he does that whole laugh your way to a better marriage thing, and he says, you know, if you, well, he used the analogy of, you know, if you give the milk for free, you're an idiot. If you give the milk for free,
yes,
you're an idiot. Okay? What he was basically saying is, if you give your body to a guy who's not willing to commit to you, purely because his whole analogy is guys are stupid and they'll take what they can get. If they can get it without committing, they'll take it. What are you telling him about you? How is he respecting you enough to go, hey, this is a prize, or is this a thing? Okay? So many different people say, you know, well, if I don't sleep with him, he's going to leave me. And if I, you know, so I sleep with him and then he never commits to me. So you sit in a situation and you're happy because you're not getting what you want. Because maybe your man is a mukhur. Worldly scenarios. And what it does is it degrades the person. I know of situations where it's the opposite, where guys were used for sex. And they sit there and they're like, but love me. And then No, I'll phone you later. And then they go off and do whatever they want. But when they come home for a booty call, drop your pants, guy, I've got 15 minutes. Do things to me. And then they leave.
Really?
Seriously. And the guy sits there crying in the corner feeling dirty. And he's not only the woman that I'm worried about. Guys, you have a standard. If your mommy and daddy didn't tell you that, you are worth more than that. You want her to respect you? Have a standard. Oh, you like what you see? No test drive, driver's license only. Then you come and you talk to me. I'm not, and I'm a mushy guy. I will not. When you want to make love to me, I give you my heart. If you treat it like a doormat, don't think I'm going to think very nice of you. You will not make love to me again. I guarantee it. If you treat me like a thing, you can forget about it. I'm sensitive. I'm sensitive. Then why do you treat yourself with any less of respect? What I'm telling them is they will not respect you. It's okay. Let them use you for what they want, and then when they're finished with you, they'll smile. That is not what God intended for you. I'm sorry. Your body, God's standard. If you are supposed to be kadosh, and you're telling it's okay to do that, that is not what you receive. I'm going to push a little bit. I've got 1 more minute, guys. If you make the land unclean, it will vomit you out too, just as it is vomiting out the nation that was there before you. Those who engage in any of these disgusting practices, whoever they may be, will be cut off from their people. So keep my charge and follow all of the do not follow any of these abominable customs that others before you have followed, and thus defile yourselves by doing them. I am Adonai your God. I'm going to jump to, I want you guys to make a note. I want you to read Ezekiel 22, 1 to 19. Okay? I want to show you something here. God is so serious about this that it's not even funny. Okay? Ezekiel 22, verses 1 to 19. I want to read it for you quickly. I'm going to rush to this because my wife is going to kill me. The word of Adonai came to me. Now, human being, are you prepared to judge? Are you prepared to judge a city drenched in blood? Then make them realize how disgusting all her practices are. Say to Adonai Elohim, says, city that sheds blood within yourselves, thus speeding to your own doom. And that makes idols for yourself and defile you. You are guilty because of the blood you have shed. You are defiled by your idols that you have made. You have shortened your days. You have completed your years. Therefore I have made you an object of scorn for the nations, a laughing stock for all your country. He's talking to Israel, eh? Those close by and those far off will taunt you. You have such a defiled reputation and such great disorder. The leaders of Israel in you all use their power in order to shed blood. In you they make light of fathers and mothers. They oppress foreigners. They wrong orphans and widows. You treat my holy things with contempt. You profane my Sabbaths. In you people gossip to the point of inciting bloodshed. In you those who eat on the mountains, okay, the high places. And in you they commit lewd acts. They commit incest in you. They force themselves on women during their menstrual impurity. In you one commits an abomination with his neighbor's wife. Another commits some lewd act defiling his daughter-in-law. Still another humbles his sister, his father, and his own father's daughter. In you people take bribes to shed blood. You demand and accept interest of loans. In greed you make profits of your neighbors and exhorting them. And you have forgotten me, says Adonai Elohim. Okay? I'm going to stop there. Now, there's three other things. 1 Corinthians, verse 6. One Corinthians 6. In this one, you win. Yes. Okay. 1 Corinthians 6 verse 9. I'm going to read from verse 7. Actually, you are bringing lawsuits against each other. It is already a defeat for you. Why not rather be wronged? Why not rather be cheated? Instead, you yourselves wrong and cheat, and you do it to your own brothers. Do you know that unrighteous people will have no share in the kingdom of God? Do not delude yourselves. People who engage in sex before marriage, who worship idols, who engage in active and passive homosexuality, who steal, who are greedy, who get drunk, who assail people with contemptuous language, who rob, none of them will share in the kingdom of God. Okay? Let's see what the next one is. Ephesians. I want you to go to Ephesians chapter 5, verse 5. I'm going to read from verse 1. So imitate God as His dear children and live a life of love, just as the Messiah loved us. Indeed, on our behalf, He gave Himself up as an offering, as a slaughtered sacrifice to God, as a pleasing fragrance. Among you, there should not even be mentioned sexual immorality or any kind of impurity or greed. These are utterly inappropriate for God's holy people. Also out of place of their obscenity and stupid talk, of coarse language. Instead, you should be giving thanks. For of this you can be sure. Every sexually immoral, impure, or greedy person, that is, every idol worshipper, has no share in the kingdom of the Messiah of God. Let no one deceive you with their empty talk. For it is because of these things that God's judgment is coming on those who disobey Him. Right? I'm feeling all the fuzzy here. Last one. Did I do Galatians?
No.
Okay. Galatians 5 as well. Verse 19. And it is perfectly evident what the old nature wants. It expresses itself in sexual immorality, impurity, and indecency. Involvement with the occult in drugs, in feuding, fighting, and becoming jealous, and getting angry, in selfish ambition, factionalism, intrigue, and envy, in drunkenness, orgies, and things like this. I warn you now, as I have warned you before, those who do such things will have no share in the kingdom of God. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, humility, self-control. Nothing Torah stands against these things. God is so serious about this, and this was such a thing, not only in our generation, in Paul's generation, after the Messiah, with the Messiah, before, going into the land, studying the same thing. If you are to imitate God, imitate Him. You were not bought so that you can just be whoever you want. You were bought for a price to be safe, to be holy, to reflect Him. How you act determines how people see your work. Think about that the next time you think of losing self-control, going out and getting drunk, acting out in frustration, anger. All of these things keep on popping up. We need to stop and we need to think before these things happen. Patience. You control what you can control. You can control yourself. By the grace of God, you will get to a place where you will make sure that those standards are long there before you get tempted. I like Randall Smith stating, you do not make your standard with a guy or a girl in the backseat of the car. If you've already gotten there, it's too late. You should have run like Joseph did when he got pinned to a wall by a crazy woman. And you should have fled. Long before, stop and look at what's happening in front of you. And go, am I of God or am I the Lord? Because your actions dictate who you belong to. Yes, it's a broken society. Yes, you guys are coming into situations where we're learning about this, and Baruch Hashem, He's still teaching us about this. I want you guys just to stop and I want you to consider where you are and what you're doing. People who are not married, pay attention. People who are married, make sure your sex life, I don't like to use the word sex, it seems so bad. When you make love, don't use it as a bargaining chip. Make sure that you do it with the right heart. It is not just about satisfying the need of your body. It's about becoming one with your spouse. Okay? This whole, you know what, we're so PG, it's not even funny right now. The quickie is not an invention that is going to bring you closer to your spouse. The quickie is there so that you can get rid of the need, scratch that itch and move on. Now, if your love life is a long string of quickies, you've got a problem. Does that make any sense? Because it's just saying, do what you need to do with me, finish up, and then let's go and carry on doing what we need to do. If you cannot make time to look into your wife's eyes while you're making love, or you cannot make the time when you're sitting there and you actually engage in, let me use a different word, engage with her, you are wasting your own time and you are deteriorating your relationship. Fix it. If you stop making love as a married couple, there's a problem. If you can no longer be intimate with each other, there are issues. Get back to loving each other. That intimacy comes from love. I want to be with you. I want to snuggle you. I want to hold you. And that reward comes from nurturing that relationship. It's not going to be easy. And it's not, trust me, if you've got kids. But it has to happen. It will help your relationship grow. Because in many instances, married couples shut down hard because what's happening in the bedroom is not happening in the bedroom. Okay? PG talked up. Alright. Bedtime is at the time.